Hello everyone, thank you for joining the webinar. Just a couple of introductions first of all. First thing is a couple of housekeeping notes. The session will be recorded, so you will have a session sent out to you as well after this. The session will take approximately 40 minutes. There is a data sheet available about Netacea under the handout section in GoToWebinar. You'll hear from myself, 𝗬𝗶𝗄𝗂. I'm one of the senior technical consultants here. You'll also hear from Nick, who will introduce himself in just a second. We're looking to cover the topics of credential stuffing and bots in general, the bot space in general, and obviously we'll talk about how the Netacea approach differs from other approaches there. We will take questions, obviously, so if you have a question, please put it in the questions tab on GoToWebinar, and we will save some time at the end to run through those. Right, over to you, Nick.
Thanks. As the title says, I'm a general manager, and the title is "Why Should You Care About Bots?" So bots have been around for years. I mean, I'm sure many of you are thinking, surely there's a more innovative or emerging threat that we could talk about. Well, we like to think not. That's because the use of bots within cyber attacks, whilst well documented, it's become significantly more sophisticated over the last 18 to 24 months. And bots represent a much bigger threat than they ever have done. And really today, Ian and I hope to shine a spotlight on that and explain why we believe a new approach or a new layer of security is urgently needed. It was actually 2016 when automated traffic overtook humans as the larger percentage of total internet traffic. And whilst there are some good bots operating out there, the rise of malicious bots or automated traffic with malicious intent is growing every year. You can see from this slide that the bottom right, the amount of activity that bots are involved in from a fraudulent perspective. I don't think any cyber presentation would be complete without the obligatory breach slide. But don't worry, I don't plan on talking any depth about these well-publicized breaches. But I do want to make it clear that these breaches are very much your problem. And what I mean by that is that both you as an individual and you, the company you work for. Let me explain. So I'll actually use myself as an example. So this is a snapshot of some of the breaches, some of the largest breaches which took place in 2018. The size of the circle, as you probably guessed, indicates the size of the breach. Now, if I take myself as an example, I have a Marriott hotel card, a Starwood Alliance account. I have a Twitter, an Uber, a Facebook, and an Instagram account. I have a MyFitnessPal account, although I admit I don't log into that one as often as my wife would like. And I'm afraid to admit I even have a Panera Bread account. I log into all of those accounts in exactly the same way: a username, which is usually my email address, and a password. Now, because I work in security, that password is a strong, secure password. But to be honest, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how strong it is, because they've been stolen, along with my matching username. Now, I'm embarrassed to admit this because I'm sure there's many people who work in cybersecurity on this webinar, but I use the same username and password to gain access to roughly 50 other websites or applications in my private life. So as I said, these breaches are very much my problem, and I'm sure I'm not alone. Now, I'm sure many of you on today's webinar use personal password managers such as Dashlane or LastPass, and I'll promise you this is the year I finally adopt that technology in my private life. But let's be honest, even if you do, 99% of the population will never do that. They will rely on your business to protect them and their PII data. So let me say it again, these breaches are now very much your company's problem. There are some, last month, Troy Hunter, who many of you will know from his website, Have I Been Pawned, said he found 770 million matching username and passwords available to buy online. 770 million. He also said that 140 million of those had never been seen before. They were fresh from the latest breaches. So if my matching username and password weren't already available to hackers, the probability keeps rising every month. This problem is getting worse. If you haven't heard of him or his website, it's certainly worth a couple of minutes of your time. I strongly recommend it. But the basic laws of supply and demand dictate that if supply is high, and by my reckoning 770 million is pretty high, then the price of obtaining comes down, and that's exactly what's happening. It's never been easier or cheaper to obtain stolen credentials, and when you combine that with how easy and low cost it is to download and use off-the-shelf bots and tools such as Storm or Sentry MBA, you can really understand why sophisticated bot attacks have become mainstream. The majority of companies we speak to have been completely blindsided by the speed and ferocity of these attacks. Now this form of attack is mentioned by Troy on this slide. It's called credential stuffing. That's an industry term. It's not one coined by him. And what we're saying is your business must have a conscious plan in 2019 to mitigate against this. There are some third parties who have noticed the rise and are writing more and more about this emerging threat. But in truth, we fully expect to see 2019 a significant rise in more articles, more recommendations, more best practice around this area. So without dwelling on this slide for too long, I wanted to highlight the fact that the use of bots has evolved so dramatically. As I just mentioned, off-the-shelf bots means that no longer this is the domain of the highly skilled few. These bots are designed and programmed to easily bypass existing detection techniques. They're no longer the basic account takeover or just automated account takeover bots. Their aim really nowadays is to closely mimic human behaviors to avoid detection. For example, we've seen a lot in the last 12 months that bots are installing fake mouse movements to appear more human-like. So no mouse movements or erratic mouse movements were historically classic signals that the traffic wasn't human, but the bots have found a way around it. These are sometimes known as imitation attacks. However, it's becoming much harder to separate real users from bots, and legacy techniques certainly can't be relied upon. What we've seen most recently, though, is that bots are able to adapt in real time. This is where the level of sophistication has reached a new high. So if they're blocked, they simply mutate, they write IP address and come back in a different form. And they will just keep repeating and repeating and repeating until they're successful. They do this by harnessing the power of AI and machine learning, and it's well documented that attackers will, have been adopting these techniques, and they're using bots to do it. So how do we stop them? Well, my colleague Ian will do that in just a moment. But before I hand over to him, I'd like to speculate what it is the bots are really after. What is their intent? So this slide doesn't even come close to capturing all of the intent of what a bot is trying to do. It's just a sample of the problem we see. In truth, there are probably too many use cases to fit onto one slide. And actually, every sector we speak to seems to have subtly different bot challenges. We're always amazed at how many different use cases and problems manifest themselves on different websites. But if I pick an example, and I know from having seen the attendees come in, there's a couple from the gaming and gambling world. So we work a lot with gaming and gambling. And so I'll use them as an example. But to be honest, this could be examples from any of the vertical sectors we work in. When we first began working with them, we assumed that client account takeover was the main goal. And to be clear, it was. I mean, bots are swarming around their client accounts because if you think about it, people treat their gambling accounts like mini bank accounts. They always have a mini slush fund available to bet. They often leave balances in there for long periods of time. But whilst account takeover was their main target, that industry faced many other bot problems that we've helped them address. So top right, fake account creation. For those of you who are dialing in from the UK, you'll have seen many of the TV adverts. Open a new account and we'll give you 20 pounds in free bets. I'm sure they exist in other countries as well. bots have been opening up hundreds of accounts with legitimate credentials, making bets and then clearing out the proceeds. This is known in the industry as bonus abuse. Automated betting, the rise in betting with in-play odds during sporting events, for example. This is where they're trying to grab odds before they change in real time when goals are scored in football matches and so on. Automated betting is certainly a problem we're addressing for, at quite large scale for one of our clients. Bots have also been aggressively scraping odds and then advertising links to their site, which say that they guarantee to beat the odds of the company they just scraped, without any of the R&D costs on working out what the odds are in the first place. And of course, if you have control of enough betting accounts, whilst it might be difficult to take money out because these gambling companies quite rightly have controls in place to stop that, they can place bets. They can start to move odds in their favor by making enough fraudulent bets. You can start to move the markets. So on top of that, and on top of loss of customer confidence, the gambling companies, as well as all companies we work with, have found that they're having to pay for a massive amount of infrastructure to handle bot traffic. So some of our customers have genuinely justified bot management solutions just on cost savings on infrastructure alone. But we very much see this as a cyber problem and a credential stuffing problem first and foremost. The final thing I'd say, and it's on the bottom row here, is around skewed analytics. Marketing departments have worked out that they can't truly trust their web data and their web analytics because it's so heavily skewed by bot activity. They're making poor business decisions based on inaccurate data. I could go on, but you can see just from one vertical sector that the use cases are broad. But the biggest threat is certainly account takeover or credential stuffing, which then leads to account takeover. And this slide shows the 5 basic steps to achieve this. You obtain stolen credentials, which we've covered here. You use a bot off the shelf to log in at scale. You gain the access, you extract something of value, and then you start the cycle again. Everyone's a target. The bots are fairly indiscriminate. There's quite a startling quote from the register at the bottom as well. So why aren't organizations stopping these attacks? Surely the existing controls that you've spent millions of pounds on already can be repurposed to stop this new threat. Well, we see it every day. They can't. What we have seen is that when some of our customers first get attacked by bots, they assume they're under a DDoS attack, and they can be forgiven for this because in truth, they have many characteristics of denial of service. But what happens in the first instance is they will turn to their DDoS mitigation vendor, who tends to be a web application firewall vendor like F5 or 𝗵𝗶𝗳, or they turn to a CDN provider like Akamai or Cloudflare. I probably feel obligated to point out there are other WAF and CDN vendors available, but they turn to them to solve the problem. However, this isn't DDoS. And whilst many WAF and CDNs do have bot management plugin modules, they haven't been able to eradicate the threat in its entirety. In fact, over 50% of our current sales pipeline is with organizations who have already deployed a bot solution that was bundled from their WAF or CDN vendor, but they're still seeing bot problems manifest themselves on their website. We're able to very quickly show them what existing controls aren't seeing and what they aren't detecting, and able to add that extra layer on top. Now, to be clear, the bundled solutions I've just mentioned are far from being useless. They will absolutely deal with basic bots, and therefore their dashboards will show that they're stopping bots and that they are providing value for money. However, we consider them only to be a really excellent first step in bot defense. The techniques they rely upon, such as capture, IP whitelisting, static rules, they're a long way from stopping the more sophisticated bots, which are quite simply dancing around these controls. Many companies we speak to are realizing the inadequacies of these approaches and are turning to dedicated bot management solutions to help them rather than the bundled offerings. At that point, when they decide that they need a dedicated bot solution, there are still some choices to make. So we are not competitionless. However, from what we see in the market, all of these solutions all have similar approaches in common, including an over-reliance on JavaScript and digital fingerprinting. Now, there are problems with JavaScript. I mean, many of you will not trust third-party JavaScript on your website. Some of you will know that it can be, no matter how well JavaScript is obfuscated, it can be cached, it can be reverse engineered, and it can be rendered fairly ineffective. I'm sure Ian's about to talk about that more in just a second. But what I'll finish on is that the answer is really, we believe a different mindset and a fundamentally different approach is needed to this problem. Ian, I'll probably hand over to you now to talk about some of those approaches and some of the common challenges you see.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. Now, we checked a lot of what we've heard so far. We want to give you Netacea's view on some of the challenges that we see from our clients and some of the solutions that are based on our experience of working with our clients. And what we wanted to start with is, this is probably the ideal that most organizations want to get to. So this is the picture perfect view of, I want to solve my bot challenge, this is what it should look like. So an organization will want to have full visibility of all traffic on the website. This is quite an interesting point, because a lot of people that we speak to don't actually have any kind of real visibility over what bots are doing on their site, what they're doing across the mobile apps, what they're doing across their APIs. So actually having an intelligence feed is actually the first step that most organizations are willing to take. Some of the other success criteria, you're able to make informed decisions on the intelligence. So you can actually have transparency in the data. You can understand how a product has come to the decision that something's a bot, it's not human, or it's human, and whether it's a bad bot or not. Most importantly, certainly in verticals like retail, is a frictionless user experience. So stopping actual legitimate users getting to the source, getting to the website, getting on the website, getting into their account is of primary importance and paramount importance. As humans, we are fickle. So for example, if we're trying to buy a product from a website and there's too much of a journey in there, we'll just go to the next site available. We also want to make sure as organizations that our website login page is secure from credential stuff and attacks. Nick's talked about this before. We're offering our customers peace of mind. So the people that subscribe to us, the people that use us as a solution, as an organization, can rest assured that we're taking the best approaches on the market to make sure that their accounts are safe. And finally, your reputation as an organization is protected. You're not going to be making the next headlines. We're not going to be part of that massive next breach, and you were the source of the issue. So that's really what success looks like to our customer base. What I wanted to look at are some of the barriers to that success. So one of the areas that I'd like to talk about first is appetite for risk. So why do people not want to put a bot solution in place? Well, some of the areas are concern over latency. Again, it's going to add latency to that customer journey. It's going to get in the way of users. It's almost going to become a nuisance. So that's a challenge that we look at getting around. And that carries on to the impact of the genuine user experience, making sure that genuine users, legitimate users on our site, on our mobile app, are uninhibited on their journey and validated. Obviously, that leads to a reluctance to block traffic. We don't want to be blocking people that are legitimate users. In the same respect, we don't want to be letting through bots that are posing as humans. There are concerns as well. This is probably the key point that I'm going to dig into most, which is concerns over the security approach. So Nick touched on this. There's a lot of vendors out there in the marketplace that place a heavy reliance on a JavaScript-based approach. So they view JavaScript as a security tool. If you speak to anybody in security, that is usually a concern. So I'm going to dig into that particular area in more detail. Well, some of the other areas that we hear from our customers that could potentially stop them putting in a bot solution are low confidence in the data. So what that means is the solution is not transparent. It's not giving you the decision-making process. You're blocking traffic. There are no reasons why. There isn't an explanation there. they often lead to limited understanding of traffic and detection rates. And again, you're almost left sometimes with blocks of legitimate user, but we can't tell you why. And the other one is complex architecture. If you think about what we're trying to achieve here, we're looking at web traffic, we're potentially looking at traffic coming from, again, from a mobile app or from an API. There are challenges out there with integrations. Onboarding a bot management solution can be challenging depending on which approach you want to take. There is an over-reliance on bundled solutions. Again, we'll talk about that in a bit more detail, but a lot of bundle solutions are providing basic bot protection. They're based around things like Boolean rule sets, static rule sets that ultimately again will be worked out and worked around. If you're taking a JavaScript heavy approach, obviously there's the resource to maintain code changes. You put in third-party JavaScript on your website. Whilst that one may be a security concern, and two, somebody's got to maintain that for you. You've got to constantly keep on top of that and maintain it on a regular basis. And if you're taking a JavaScript heavy approach, then how are you going to cover things like your mobile apps as well? Do you go down the route of putting SDKs in place? Again, that's quite a lot of work for an organization to go through, or do you plug in an appliance that sits on your network somewhere? So those are sort of the areas of key challenges that we see as a vendor, and through our customers and the people that we're speaking to. But one of the areas I wanted to focus on more is the concern over security approach. And this is about appetite for risk. So this is using JavaScript in security. So a lot of organizations, JavaScript first approaches use things like device fingerprinting, information user interactions with their devices, key factors in recognizing legitimate users. They're things like browser identification, user's ID, keystrokes, timing, traffic source. They fingerprint the browser and monitor the behavior of the user using things like mouse trails. This in isolation on its own presents several key challenges, including client security, which we'll explore in just a second. But in essence, with this type of approach, you're putting the solution in the attacker's domain. It effectively can be a menu or a playlist to work around once it's figured out. And ultimately, it's security by obscurity. And on that particular note, a lot of vendors out there will obfuscate their JavaScript. It will not be in plain text, obviously, as code. But again, while the script is obfuscated using free services that you can find online and a tiny script, we're able to expose the human readable versions of many of these solutions. So you start with the principle that, yeah, JavaScript is probably not meant to be a security solution. We don't want to do that as an organization, but actually once it's in place, there are ways to work around these solutions. So ultimately, what that means is we can inspect the script, we can decode it, as it were, and we can find ways of spoofing valid responses as part of an automated attack. So if that JavaScript is looking to block certain user agents, we'll work around that and we'll come back at the organization. Naturally, we take a different approach. So the Netacea focuses on the device's interaction with the server. So what we're focusing on, like as an organization, is we're focusing on the resources that a request fetches and the user's interaction with the applications hosted on the customer's server. So we have a much wider capture of data to give increased accuracy. We're primarily looking at what the user is trying to do. We're looking at the intent. What is the intent of that interaction? So the approach is extremely effective. We greatly reduce false positives and will only improve over time. As we've seen, having the menu for detection and mitigation in the attacker's domain can be detrimental and deteriorate over time. Our approach, which is a machine learning first approach, we're primarily a machine learning organization. We're the only ones in EMEA that are primarily led as a machine learning focused organization. We use our analytics by focusing on what the attacker is trying to do on the server side. And these approaches will only ever get better with time as the machine adapts, as the algorithms adapt, as we are fluid with your traffic. We get to learn what good traffic looks like for you. Our approach only gets better over time. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail about that. It's actually a lot easier as you think. We work differently to many vendors. We understand bot behavior better than anyone else, really, because of our pioneering approach using machine learning. So our machine learning algorithms are finely tuned. to know what normal looks like. So what that basically means is we will profile your business. We'll understand what good looks like. What is a good user journey? What is a legitimate user journey? And we'll give you the visibility that you need to respond to, nefarious traffic or non-human like traffic. So our intelligence provides you with the data you need to make decisions that you want to block on, you want to mitigate the threat, or simply use us as an intelligence feed to make changes within your environment. So, for example, if we detect that your several accounts have been compromised, you might not want us as a solution to automatically mitigate that. You might just want the intelligence feed to make changes in other solutions, such as an identity and access management solution. You lock the account, you change the password, and you inform the user. We look to evolve as well. So our approach is to understand bot motivations, and intent only gets better over time. We mentioned this before. Why buy a product that works for the attackers just of today when you can actually buy one that's going to adapt and be fluid with your environment and cope with the changes as your user journey adapts and evolves over time? So we built the approach around four main areas: speed, transparency, accuracy, and usability. And actually, as a business, as an organization, as a vendor, we believe the future of cybersecurity is all about smarter, lower friction solutions that leverage the power of technology and not only mitigate more threats, but make security a better experience for our customers. So we can have the benefits of security, but the user journey is not compromised in any way. So let's dig into those areas very quickly. Speed. We come from a world where every millisecond counts. As an organization, we are geared up to do this. It's in our DNA. We evolved out of another company that built high accuracy, high speed web applications. So we built the solution from the ground up to be quick to deploy, to detect and mitigate. So we take a cloud-based approach for our platform, which allows swift deployment. It allows elastic scalability, high performance and availability, without the limitations of maintaining JavaScript on your website or across your mobile apps, or maintaining a hardware appliance. We've got a variety of integrations, so you can plug the platform in via your CDN, you can plug it in via an API, or you can plug it in via a reverse proxy. We've got dedicated integrations out the box ready to go. The purpose of showing you this is it's available, it's built in a cloud-based approach to make it more accessible for you to plug into and get the benefit out of the solution. We want to go beyond black box solutions that can often hide the decision-making process, which can sometimes cause doubt and uncertainty within organizations. So again, if you're blocking legitimate users and you don't know why, that can harm the confidence that you have in that solution. So we focus on empowering our customers to understand the threats with our risk-based scoring system that protects the business. So we give full solution control with transparency through the portal. And that actually has been identified as a big issue with some of the other vendors out there. So we provide things like actionable insights. We give you dashboards with capabilities. We give you risk scoring. You get to benefit from our threat intelligence feeds, and we'll ultimately bring to life your bot traffic. That's what this is really about, giving you the visibility and the ability to mitigate should that be in your scope. Because of the approach, accuracy is key to what we do. So we harness the power of machine learning to analyze user behavior, to identify malicious traffic, both human and bot. To identify malicious traffic, we layer an in-depth feature set to analyze how a user interacts with the site, what their reputation with. Yes, we do fingerprinting, and we do look at the browser, and we do look at the device, but that's just one part of the puzzle. Actually, the key to identifying bot traffic is understanding that user journey and the interaction with the site. So this is key to preventing sophisticated attacks, which can spoof the browser fingerprint, but not hide their true intent. We are looking at intent. We're looking at interactions with the site. And finally, this has to be usable. So at Netacea, we look to build a partnership to begin your journey with us. We have a mature proof of value methodology and really minimal requirements to get you started. Now we look to engage with you on a journey, all from about understanding your bot landscape, what you know about it, what feeds you have internally to then plugging the system in, and we can do that in a proof of concept or a proof of value without any commitment from, financial commitment from your side. Some organisations just want to have better visibility, so they use Netacea as an intelligence feed. But obviously we do have mitigation options like advanced capture, like black holing, like direct blocking of traffic based on the intelligence that we use. We do all of this typically without any PIO data required, so sharing data with us, sharing your internet traffic with us, if you will, and giving us access is a fairly straightforward process. And again, as we mentioned before, we're ready to deploy via integrations such as CDN like Fastly and Cloudflare. We have a reverse proxy solution, an API-based solution as well. So we'll work with you to understand what the best fit is. This is a partnership with a vendor rather than just a pure play solution sell. And of course, we are, as an organization, built around a data science team. It's in our DNA, it's in our blood. That's how we've built the business and our product. So we have a data science team and people like myself as a consultancy team to support you through this journey. And it is a journey. You might have already taken steps. You might have things like WAFs and CDNs. We're there to complement all of that and sit alongside that in the stack to give you a better chance of mitigating attacks, to reduce the risk to your environment, and to ultimately give you better visibility and mitigation options across your internet traffic. So that's the end of my part. I'm just going to go ahead and analyse some of the questions that we've got.
What have we got?
Nick, there looks like there's a couple in for you, but I'll take one first. So, does the solution provide integration points into existing systems? Yeah, I think we just covered that. So, as I said before, we integrate via the CDN layer. You can plug this in via such as your CDN like Fastly or Cloudflare or CloudFront. You can plug it in via an API. We can serve mitigation in different ways. You can plug us in via a reverse proxy. Again, it really is down to your appetite, your infrastructure, your architecture, and what you want the solution to do. Nick, one for you. So quite a simple one. How's the solution licensed, and ultimately what is the costing based on for the platform?
Licensing is very flexible. In short, the costing is all based on the amount of traffic we're analyzing. So what is your web traffic, for instance? I mean, one of our customers, very, very small, tiny volumes and don't pay us much, but as they expect to grow, and they will, having looked at their website, they'll have a pay-as-you-grow type model with us. It's very flexible.
Okay, good, thank you. Thanks, Nick. Another one for me, where does it sit in the network? So I think we've covered this a little bit already, but we are a platform-based solution, a cloud-based platform solution. We have the ability to sit at the edge to provide detection and mitigation alongside your existing stack, which might include CDN or WAS. So there's multiple implementation options, as we've discussed, CDN, API, and reverse proxy. Another one for me, as you're using machine learning, how long does it take to learn and provide impact? So that's a really good question. The simple answer to that is from day one, we are starting to identify malicious bot traffic using our standard algorithms. So as soon as the platform is plugged in, you start to get impact straight away and data and intelligence from us as an organization. The beauty about our approach is it will only ever get better over time. So as we understand your user journeys, as we identify what good looks like from your side, these will only tune the algorithms and give us better indications, better accuracy. But out of the box, from day one, as soon as you plug the platform in, it's going to be impacting and giving you the visibility and decision making that you want it to have. Nick, I think we might have covered this, but I'll take this one actually. So, does the solution require any commitment to trial or POC? Absolutely.
As you own POCs, if you could take this one.
It's fine. I'll take this one. So no, we are a very easy to vendor to work with, I think, and we ultimately want to bring to life our platform for you. A lot of this is unknown. We appreciate that. A lot of this may be a discovery for the organization or customer. So the simple answer is there is no financial commitment to working with us on a proof of concept. If you just want to plug the platform in and see what it can do for you, if you want to just prove out that it's going to provide better visibility, better intelligence, better decision-making points for you as an organisation, we do that without any risk or any commitment for you financially.
It's actually helped customers build better business cases. I mean, many people know they've got a bot problem but need a POC to really provide those data points as well.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. I think that's all the questions that have come through. We'll try to answer any more that come through, in the next sort of 30 seconds. But is there anything else? I think we are.
Anything else there? No.
So thank you everyone for joining today. Thank you, Nick, for coming along and presenting. Any questions? Obviously, get us via the website. You've got the data sheet on there as well to download. We'll look forward to speaking with you soon, and have a great day.